we gotta get rid of. Like, don't talk about Susan Collins, talk about Joni Ernst, John Cornyn, Cassidy of Louisiana. These guys are horrendous. What is up, people of the internet? It is me, Real American, back with a new video, and I hope everyone is having a great day. I'm having a great day myself. And before we get into it, don't forget to like, subscribe, share with your friends, and of course, join the channel today. These are all great ways to support the daily content, but enough of the promotional stuff. Let's get into it, because I want to talk about the 2026 elections, and I know it seems incredibly early to talk about 2026. After all, it's only been, what, a month and a half since Trump actually won, and he doesn't even take the oath of office for another month or so, so it seems very early to talk about 2026, which it kind of is. But I still want to talk about it as early as possible because 2026 is a critical year for Republicans, not just because they have the majority, but also because this is a perfect opportunity to primary out some of the most egregious rhinos in both the House and the Senate. So let's get into it. Republicans are defending a slim majority in 2026, but Democrats hold a tough fight ahead to control the chamber, which is not true. Listen, Republicans, especially in the Senate, they don't have a slim majority. Now, in the House, that's a different story. Like, yeah, the Republicans have like a two-seat majority, and let's be honest, more than likely, the House is flipping Democrat in 2026. Though I don't think it's going to be this blue tsunami like some Dems think. Just for the simple fact that there are basically no Harris Republican seats anywhere. For those that don't understand what I'm talking about there's really no Republicans that represent a Harris seat. Like, outside of Michael Lawler and, like, Don Bacon, that's about it. Which, that's only two. For Republicans to lose the House, they need to lose 3 seats. So, of course, Democrats, they could win other seats, but I don't think it's going to be 2018 2.0, just for the simple fact that, A, Republicans don't have that many seats that were won by Harris, and secondly, in 2018, Democrats or Republicans, they had a bunch of seats that they should have never won. They won it back in 2014, these seats that were like Clinton plus 10, Clinton plus 15, you know, seats that more than likely Republicans were never going to hold on to anyways. They just lost them in 2018 because it was such a Democrat year. In 2026, you're not going to have that. You have Don Bacon and Michael Lawler, which Michael Lawler, he's running for governor more than likely. And Don Bacon probably goes down. But outside of that, the rest of these seats, they were won by Trump. And in fact, a bunch of these House seats that Democrats have, Trump won them. Trump won these House seats that Dems currently control. And not just by a half a point. There's a bunch of seats that Trump won by like 5, 6, 7, 8 points across the board. So not only are not many Harris Republican seats, but there's in fact a bunch of Trump Democrat seats everywhere. So the House, I do think, will flip because it is a midterm, but I just don't see it being this 30-seat swing. Could it happen potentially? I guess. Maybe Trump's administration is unpopular, but I still have a feeling that people are going to support what Trump is doing. Like, yeah, they may not like him personally, but they may approve of his job. Just the simple fact that it's not a disaster like it was with Joe. Like, under Joe, everything was on fire. It was a shit show. No one knew what the hell was happening. And under Trump, yeah, people may not like him personally, though there's polls out there that suggest that he's actually becoming more popular. But either way, there's a chance that just the simple fact that not everything's on fire, people are going to be like, oh yeah, Trump's actually a good president. Democrats need a net gain of 4 seats to take control of the Senate in 2 years. And while there are 20 Republicans up for re-election in the upcoming midterms, compared to 13 Democrats, many of those Republicans are running in deep red seats, or states, which that's the biggest problem. You look at the map for 2024 or 6, and you realize something quickly. Democrats have a big problem. Like, look at this map. Outside of North Carolina and maybe Maine, because, you know, Republicans hold that seat every year because of Collins, but either way, outside of those 2 states, what else would flip? Like, if Democrats win North Carolina and let's say they win Maine, Republicans are still at 51. They're still at 51 seats after 2026. It's a very small majority, and you have to deal with people like Murkowski and John Curtis, but at the bare minimum, Republicans got the majority. And that's assuming Democrats actually beat Susan Collins, which I think she's going to have that seat as long as she wants it. It might be closer than it was that in 2020, but I still think Collins will win. And North Carolina we'll get to in a minute, but outside of that, do you really think Texas is going to flip? After what happened in 2024, there's no shot. Do you think Ohio will flip? No. Florida? That's a joke. None of these other states realistically could flip. Like, do you really think Trump or Republicans will lose Florida in the year 2026? This isn't 2018 anymore where Rick Scott barely wins by a half a point, or not even that. He won by like 1,000 votes. That's not Florida anymore. Florida's a Republican state. Same thing with Texas. And even Maine, which is a Democrat state, Susan Collins, she has that seat for however long she wants it. So the Republicans are going to keep the Senate. I just don't see how Democrats win with this map. It's not like 2024 where, yeah, Democrats had Montana, Ohio, West Virginia, Michigan, Wisconsin, Pennsylvania. They had all these Democrats in either competitive or Republican states. Outside of North Carolina and Maine, none of these states are Democrat or really competitive. So even if you win both of them, if you're the Democrats, you still do not get the majority. And that's the problem. Just one GOP senator is running in a state that Vice President Harris won. And that's, of course, Susan Collins in Maine. That's the only one that is running in a state that Vice President Harris won. That's it. It's not like 2024 where Democrats had like 7 or 8 in Republican states or in competitive states. No, this is just one state. So even if you win Maine, you're not going to win the Senate. Even if you win both Maine and North Carolina, which North Carolina is a Republican-leaning state, that's not enough. That's the problem. It's just a basic math problem. You're down 3 seats, and you need to flip 4 seats to regain the majority. Well, the current map, you really don't have 4 states to flip in a realistic scenario. And the most ironic part about all of this is the fact that there are more Democrat senators in Trump-won states than there are in Harris-won states for Republicans. Susan Collins is the only one in a Harris state. Democrats, they have Gary Peters of Michigan and Jon Ossoff of Georgia. States Trump won. So those states could potentially flip, especially Georgia. We'll get to that in a second. So you just start doing the math. It's like, okay, even if you lose North Carolina and Maine, which is still unlikely, if Republicans win Georgia, well, you're still at 52. And that means even with Murkowski and John Curtis being dumbasses, you still have kind of a real majority with J.D. Vance being the tie-breaking vote. You start doing this math and you realize, oh yeah, Democrats have a big problem with this current map. And I still think no matter what, Republicans are going to probably keep the Senate. And there's a chance they could actually expand their majority. Now, we got to talk about states individually because this is not just to keep the majority. No, we have to actually get rid of worthless Republicans in deep red states. Now, listen, I know people are not happy with Susan Collins of Maine. For whatever reason, people are saying, we must primary out Susan Collins. No. Listen, is Susan Collins the best? No. Does that make her a rhino that we should primary out? Hell no. Susan Collins is in Maine. She actually has an excuse to have not the best voting record. But even then, the thing with Collins is every time we need a vote to pass something, she will vote for it. That's Susan Collins. The times that she doesn't vote for whatever we want, it's stuff that we know for a fact it's going to pass. So we don't need her support in Maine. That's why. So, listen, is she perfect? No. But at least she's a team player, and she's in a Harris state. We're not talking about, oh, she's in an R plus 15 state. No, This is a state that Harris won by like 6. So Susan Collins has an excuse. She's a moderate from a Democrat-leaning state in Maine. So I'm not giving her shit for not having the best record. Do not primary her out, because you know what's going to happen? If she loses that primary, that's basically an automatic flip. I don't see how any Republican outside of Collins could hold on to that seat. Collins is the only one right now that could win Maine. So do not primary out Susan Collins. Let her stay there and just focus on other states. Now, one big primary challenge we need to talk about for the swing states is in North Carolina. This is the one state where we have a chance in the main swing states. You know, North Carolina, Georgia, Maine, kind of the more competitive ones. North Carolina is the one where Republicans can actually get rid of a Republican in Thom Tillis. Thom Tillis needs to go. I don't give a rat's ass, but oh, it's a midterm and it's he's an incumbent. We can't risk it. Guys, Thom Tillis is garbage. And he has no reason whatsoever to have his voting record. I know it's North Carolina. It's a bit more competitive than, say, Florida or Texas, obviously. But that doesn't excuse the fact that Thom Tillis has a pretty shitty voting record, and we gotta get rid of the guy. He is not good on the issues, and in fact, Republicans in North Carolina, they hate his guts. So I've argued that Thom Tillis, even if he wins a primary, I think he actually could go down. Especially if Roy Cooper, the former governor of North Carolina, runs. And I know governors don't automatically win Senate races, but still, Thom Tillis is not as strong as some people think he is. He's a weak candidate who has a shitty voting record and has pissed off the base. That's not a good combination of midterm. Because guess what? If these Trump voters see Thom Tillis is running for re-election, do you think they're going to say, yeah, you know what, Trump's not on the ballot, but you know what, I'm going to go vote for Thom Tillis? Hell no! They're going to say, go F yourself. We're not going to vote for you whatsoever. You have fun, Tillis. Goodbye. Thom Tillis is a weak incumbent. And I know it's North Carolina, you have to be careful, but just find a Ted Budd type. Ted Budd is a good senator of North Carolina. He's good on the issues, and he won easily. Find someone like that, and Thom Tillis is dead on arrival. I don't see him winning a primary. If there's a serious challenger, I don't think he wins. Because Republicans in North Carolina, they hate this guy. They think he's incompetent. They think he sucks on the issues. He doesn't represent them. Get rid of him. So again, we gotta see what happens. Maybe Roy Cooper does run, the former governor, but I think even if you primary out Thom Tillis, I think Republicans barely hold on to North Carolina. I think 2024, Republicans just had a bad year because Mark Robinson kind of sunk the ticket a little bit. But I think they will rebound a little bit in 2026, just a little bit. But I think you run someone like Ted Budd, who I know already is a senator, but find someone like Ted Budd to run for that seat. And Thom Tillis loses the primary, and more than likely, you're going to win the general. Now, outside of Thom Tillis, there are a couple other Republicans we got to get rid of. Like, don't talk about Susan Collins, talk about Joni Ernst, John Cornyn, Cassidy of Louisiana. These guys are horrendous. And I think a good chunk of them, especially Bill Cassidy, you can get rid of them. Bill Cassidy, for those that don't know, he voted to convict Trump on his garbage impeachment. It was a bunch of crap. He's in Louisiana. Like, this is a Republican state, and he voted to impeach Trump? Or I should say convict? It's like, really? You're in Louisiana, and apparently Bill Cassidy already has a serious challenger, and more than likely, he's going to lose that primary. He's in so much trouble right now that I think Bill Cassidy's kind of screwed. He may just retire. We'll see what happens, but if we get rid of Bill Cassidy, that's a major rhino we don't have to worry about ever again. And there are a couple other ones. John Cornyn, we'll wait and see. Like, Ken Paxton is probably going to run. And if John Cornyn improves his record because he knows a primary challenge is coming, maybe keep him in that seat. If he really has a better record after the primary threat, maybe just let him stay there for a little bit. But Joni Ernst in Iowa, get rid of her. Just get rid of her. She is an awful Republican. She tried to derail Hegseth's entire nomination candidacy, and she deserves to go away. Get rid of Joni Ernst. These are major ones. There are a couple other ones, like there's one in like Idaho, South Dakota. There's some bad ones in the Great Plains. But focus on people like Bill Cassidy. Focus on Thom Tillis, Joni Ernst. Maybe focus on John Cornyn. We'll see how his record is. Maybe he gets a little bit better. But those are the main primary challengers. Get rid of these people. Don't focus on Susan Collins. Susan Collins, I can live with. Bill Cassidy, Joni Ernst, they're in R plus 30 states. R plus 10 states. They should not be voting the way they voted. Now, you look at the map, and there are actually a couple flip opportunities for Republicans. They could actually win through Georgia and Michigan. Personally, I think Michigan's kind of off the table. Like, Peters, he did pretty bad in 2020 considering against John James, but I don't see Republicans running that good of a candidate against him. I don't know who would run. But I really believe the easiest flip opportunity for both parties is actually in Georgia. Because Brian Kemp, the governor of Georgia, who I know a lot of people have a very interested opinion about, is probably going to run. At least he should run. I believe if Brian Kemp runs for governor, or I should say Senate, he would win. I really believe if Trump supports him early on, which I think he will, I think the whole Brian Kemp-Trump drama is kind of done. I think at the bare minimum, Trump will kind of stay out of the primary. But if you get Brian Kemp as the nominee, I think he beats Jon Ossoff. I really do. I think Jon Ossoff, he won because David Perdue ran a shit campaign, and you could argue Warnock carried him over the hump in 2021 because he was the one that got these people out to vote, not Jon Ossoff. No one gives a shit about Jon Ossoff. The guy is irrelevant. He does nothing. And in fact, it seems like he's terrified of Brian Kemp because out of nowhere, he's trying to pretend to be this fake moderate Democrat supporting Trump's agenda. He's like, yeah, I support some of Trump's cabinet picks, so vote for me. This guy knows he's in trouble if Brian Kemp runs. I hope he does. I would support him. I know people don't like him, but Brian Kemp's our best option in Georgia. Plus, if you don't run Brian Kemp, there's a chance you get stuck with someone like, I don't know, Taylor Greene. That would be an utter disaster. So just get behind Brian Kemp if he runs, which I think he will. But if he doesn't, well, the race becomes a lot more difficult. But you can still win it. I just think Brian Kemp, he has the easiest pathway of all these candidates. So if that happens, you just look at the map. Let's say Republicans win Georgia. They hold on to North Carolina and Maine. They actually expand the majority by a seat. And I know it's not a guarantee, but not only do you expand the majority, let's just say you get rid of Bill Cassidy in Louisiana, Joni Ernst in Iowa. If you're the Republican Party, this is more like a net gain of like 3 seats. Because you get rid of rhinos in Iowa and Louisiana, maybe more, and Brian Kemp beats Jon Ossoff. We shall see what happens, but I really believe right now, the Republican Party, they're going to keep the majority in 2026. Anyways, folks, thank you so much for watching. If you guys did enjoy, smash the like button down below, subscribe, share with your friends, hit that little bell, follow the social media accounts in the description down below, and of course, join the channel today. And as usual, remember that Christ is Lord. Godspeed to all of you.